This podcast is brought to you by the United States Marine Corps.
Sports fans, welcome back to another week of the San Diego Lax Cast, sponsored by the United States Marine Corps. Thank you very much, Marines, for putting this all on. Christian Pedersen, Coach Tom DeMeo. Coach, at the very last second, made a wardrobe change. Just know that next week's podcast, guaranteed, we're not just changing the lax coverage, we're changing the fashion game. It's going to happen. Coach, we took a spring break week, and oh my goodness, national wins on the guys' side, absolute chaos on the girls' side. So we got a whole lot to unpack. Let's start on the guys' side.
Yep.
Torrey Pines, which I want to dig a little bit deeper into as we go on, 7-0, tearing through some national teams. You were commenting online that they have earned that number one ranking.
Easily. I mean, they're everyone knew going into the season they were the team to beat, and they're proving it. They're beating all the teams they put on the schedule. They put together a tough schedule. They have the talent to beat good teams, and they're beating them. So they're beating them by a decent amount. So
well, let's run you down. Let's run you down those wins. They are sitting at 7-0 as the time of us filming this. Lawrenceville School from New Jersey, not one that the San Diego fans know, but one that you say is a legitimate win.
Yeah,
that's a big win. Highland Park from Texas, another one that they make their way out here to San Diego every year. You always see them beating a couple, losing a couple, but another big time win. St. Ignatius Prep, Noble and Green. I mean, it takes them 4 games just to get to a San Diego section team, and then their first game is Cathedral Catholic. They beat them. Then they go back to out of county. Then they beat Carlsbad most recently. So we're just sort of starting to see them play the in-county, which I think is the easier thing for San Diego people to sort of wrap their head around, is how big or not that win was. But you're saying it's 7-0 right now, still the team to beat, absolutely showing you everything that you need to know to say, wow.
Yeah, I mean, we knew they were good, and then when, I think you look in the capacity that they beat Cathedral, it was just, that's always been a fairly close game. And when you look at how they
17-4 final score there.
And it was like 14-1 at halftime, which is just, that's probably never been the case. And so that's just a statement in San Diego. And I think we know they can compete nationally. And we know that they had that big upset last year. They were doing this last year too. And, the playoffs was a little different. But, they are also still not done. I think they're going back east and playing Avon Old Farms, which is, I believe, sits at number 5 or 6 in the country right now. That's a prep school. So they're still playing the best, and that's going to help them. This year when they get to the playoffs, I think because of their schedule, it's going to make it that much more tough to beat.
And that much more entertaining to potentially watch a rematch if the brackets can work out right, to see them and Coronado mix it back up again in the playoffs. Because like you mentioned a couple weeks ago, there's a little bit of some new blood. It's not just the traditional LCC and Torrey is the rivalry, and then everyone else is kind of just, they got a little bit of a this versus that. There's all sorts of crossed up. Everyone's having fun, sniping everyone right now in the guys.
I mean, Poway's been a little bit up and down. They've been in every game, but they've had a close game with Coronado, 1-goal game. They played a close one with, I believe it was St. Margaret's the other night, fought Orange County, one of their probably top team in Orange County. So they, I think everyone's sort of close to each other, and Torrey has set themselves apart, and it'll be interesting. Some can take them down.
A couple of other guys' schools that I want to talk about is let's start with Coronado right now, let's start with Carlsbad right now. The Lancers sitting at 6-4. I'll try to read this off without getting too lost in the who and what. Close loss to Poway. I consider 4 goals to start the season a close loss. They beat Scripps Ranch in overtime. They beat El Camino. They beat Valley Center. They lose to Bishops. They lose to Torrey. Then a couple of wins rattled off in the middle, including a win over La Jolla High, which defending Division I champions. So Carlsbad, one of those schools that I feel like you can always mention them as being in the conversation, quote unquote, to be in that. Are they going to be the favorites in D1? Are they going to sneak up into Open? So just kind of unpack for what you see out of 6-4 right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a solid 6-4. They've played some good teams, like you mentioned. They lost to Torrey Pines. There's no shame in that. And the win over La Jolla is a big one, because I think when you look, as always, those 5 through say 14, those teams, which we tend to be at Santa Fe in that mix too. You look at who's going to be up in that Open and who's going to be in that Final Four, and Carlsbad's sort of always been in that mix. And it's a solid record, and I think, it comes down to they're a strong team. They're strong at the X face-offs, and they got some talented kids over there. And the question is, are they going to be able to get into that top 8, or are they going to be a Final Four type team?
Now you mentioned strength. One team I want to talk about that I am continuously, it's weird to say surprised by, because that maybe comes across for the people that are just watching this for the first time as a little bit of a slap in the face to that team, but Westview continues to stand out just a little bit this year in terms of they keep on dominating. You got a good look at them early on in the season when it was still sort of, whoa, was that a down for you? Was that an up for them? And it's looking like that was case in point how they're going to be all season long.
Yeah, they have a strong group of seniors, and they get some younger kids that are contributing, and Coach Bauer plays a good style of defense. It's aggressive. He does his homework, and they're always prepared. And they got TJ Summers back this year, who's a left-hand attackman, and so they're sort of unlike some other teams. They'll always be in that probably 5 through 10 range or in that ballpark, but they have offensive firepower, and then they're also strong in the cage. I think they have a kid that played behind their senior there who started the past couple of years, and he was excellent. So they're sort of one of the more balanced 5 through 10 teams.
So, we're about at the halfway point of the season right now. Would it be unfair to maybe say that this could be the team that would shake up things more than anyone else in terms of the Open Division playoffs?
Yeah, I think they're the type of team that could go into one of the top places, a top 2, 3, 4 team, and they could give them a difficult time because they play good defense, because they have a good game plan. And they're balanced. And so that could be, unlike some other years, I feel like this year would be a year they could do that.
Another team that's up always in that mix that I want to talk about is the Bishops Knights. Right now they are 3-2. And it's hard with this versus football. Football, we're on week 5, everyone's played 5 games. We're on week 7, everyone's played 5 games for Bishops, 10 games for Carlsbad, 7 for Torrey Pines. So a little bit of a different sample size. But Bishops, Chase Ladrito, Isaiah Dawson, they have the hype players, but they've always seemed to be maybe just a little bit short in terms of what they really need to be that dominant team. What do you see? Just give me the eye test right now at 3-2.
Well, they have the talent, and they're talented enough to beat anybody. And they're in our league. We play them twice coming up later on the season. So I think, what they struggle with, similar to some of these smaller private schools, is depth. But, between Tyler, Chase, Isaiah, Dooley, they have a core of really good offensive players. And so they can score, and they can get on runs. And so, they're another team that could get out there and upset some teams. I know they beat Lawrenceville early in the season. Chase won it with I think an overtime goal, and so they're to be reckoned with. I mean, I think they'll be right there with the Coronados, Cathedrals, and that they're all going to kind of shake it out in the end, and they can all beat each other.
Well, it certainly is shaping up that with how backloaded some of these schedules are, that it will be a very entertaining league season for the first time in a couple of years, because there will be the ability to maybe fall from 5th to 10th, just like that, or the ability for somebody to close the gap really hard. One last guys team that I want to talk about before we jump over to the other side is the Rancho Bernardo Broncos, right now at 6-2. RB, you have had a bunch of close games with them off and on throughout the years, so you know them a little bit. But I'll ask you just kind of the same thing that we're talking about with all the teams in the mix. Just give me the eye test, give me the reaction to a 6-2 RB.
I think they're successful in San Diego. Their last 2 losses were, I think, to out-of-state teams.
And to Lakewood, Colorado, and to Denver East.
Both good Denver teams, and those guys are always tough to beat. Those when they come in here, and so I think. But
before that, six straight.
6-0. I mean, they ran the table. They I think
Crest, Saints, Pack Ridge, and you guys.
Yeah, so I'd say if between Westview, I think Westview's probably stronger between the two, but. They're certainly going to be like a lot of those teams in that mix between 5 and 10, and where they end up in the Open Division or a top seed in D1. I think that's where they fall. They have the talent to fall out there. Like all of us, they're going to stay healthy and continue to win games.
Every coach watching this went, oh, he's so right. Oh my goodness, the best laid intentions. You can just
We've all been
up
there.
in smoke. Let's jump over to the girls' side now, because you have seen it a little bit with Coronado having a couple huge wins, a couple tough losses. Like, it has been a roller coaster season. LCC has taken over the de facto 1 seed right now from Torrey Pines, which in and of itself just sounds, it doesn't roll off the tongue quite as smoothly as you've talked about Caitlin Doucette, and just the fastest ever basically to 100 wins and all of the just ripping off titles they've had in the last couple of years. So a little bit of a change there up at the top. And then Scripps, Nato, San Marcos, Poway, just sandwiched in there with almost no margin of error between 3 and 8.
Yeah, they're all there. I mean, I think it's in the girls' side, it's a bigger field. With that, it's more like, say, 3 through 10. But with the top teams, and I'll see, I think LCC Coronado this week, tomorrow night, or the next night. So I'll get to see them firsthand and see how they look. And I haven't yet seen them this year, but I know certainly Torrey looked like they were down a little bit. They graduated a ton of talent. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It doesn't necessarily roll off the tongue well, but...
And a couple of newcomers to that. We got Del Norte.
Yeah.
Staying strong now, 2 weeks in the top 10, and they have been blasting people, absolutely. And then on their heels, kind of an interesting case study to give you guys a little bit of the insight is how do we put together our top 10 rankings. There's a little bit of the human element, but a lot of it just goes to the lax power rankings.
Yep.
That's what CIF uses. That's what we like to use, because we like to give you a fair and adequate representation of who is going to be where in the playoffs. And right now, Granite Hills is in the top 10. They are a team that has yet to really get that shot. They beat Rancho Bernardo. That's their marquee win, quote unquote, if you will, up here in the North County. But it's 20-1, 17-2, 18-3 against South Bay and East County teams. So there is yet another new face kind of peeking in on that top 10. So on the girls' side, I'm loving it this year that it takes a little bit of the monotony out of it, of us being like, all right, this is everybody playing for second. This is everybody playing for second. You sort of... you got the dice, and you just kind of are going to toss them out there in the playoffs and be like, this could be interesting.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it isn't. I don't think it's cut and dry. I mean, I think especially on the girls' side. I mean, I think clearly on the boys' side, we can all look at it and say Torrey Pines is the one to beat. I think on the girls' side, you have, I mean, between La Jolla and Coronado and LCC. And
I didn't even mention La Jolla, yeah.
Poway, and I mean, you just have a mix of teams that, and quite frankly, for Granite Hills with the schedule that they've played, it's going to be really hard for them to go in and beat a team like that if they're in the open division. But, that just, that's what it comes down to. Every year there seems to be a team or two that lacks power, can't really, it can take the scores and the big wins, but ultimately, they might be over their head when they get to the big open games.
But at the same time, you want to see it happen. You want to see a team that is not the Blue Bloods, that is not the traditional ones, at least in the conversation.
Yeah,
if it's a 10-0 loss in the first round of the Open Division, well, let me ask you this: let's put yourself in. You've been on both ends of that spectrum, but let's remove it academically from an SFC and put you at Mar Vista, or put you at a school that nobody in the lacrosse community really knows a ton about. Yep. Which do you want? Do you want to fight tooth and nail for that D1 championship that you could possibly win? Or do you want to toss your hat in the ring and say, we're not scared. You might beat us, but we are not backing down from an open division challenge?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly, when you can get to that level and be a top 8 team in San Diego, it gets people in your town excited. It gets younger kids excited, and no one really necessarily pays attention to the fact that you might lose that open game by 10. But ultimately, it's, you kind of want to balance it, and that's, you get a year when you're successful in Division 2 or Division 1, and then you have a year you're in the open division. So, you're always just playing to win. And in the end, if you're not better than the team you play and you lose, that's fine. And normally your kids can deal with that. So I think, put myself in those shoes. If I'm them, I want to just take it as far as I can take it and get the highest seed I can get and be the first one in that area.
I'm right there behind you, pushing all my chips in on this season and saying, let's go. To heck with you guys thinking that we don't deserve to be here.
Yeah, and it also depends on what, as a coach, the dynamics of your kids, how many seniors you have, are you a young team, what's your vision like for the future? And sometimes playing, if you get a bunch of young kids and they get to play through some playoff games and they get a better experience in doing that, it's not the worst thing, but then you put your chips all in for the Open Division the following season. So yeah, you have to. It's a balance. It's different with every kid, every team.
And we can sit here and Monday morning quarterback it forever.
If I'm
but
them, I'm just going as far as I can.
You're absolutely riding the wave. Let's actually dive into just a couple of teams that I want to give some shout outs to. Let's start with another team that's kind of way out there physically and on terms of the radar, the Olympian Eagles. They are looking like a team in the D2 category that you absolutely are going to want to beat because of Nikki Laxina. She has scored almost every one of their goals this season. And I mean, you want to talk about a workhorse, Coach. You've had people like that periodically that you've had to rely on. So it does correlate to usually when you have that one-star player, you have some wins. But shout out to Olympian. They're sitting at 5-2 right now. They got big wins over Mira Mesa, Mission Bay, and Mar Vista with a tough overtime loss in their one D1 opponent. They lost to Otay Ranch in overtime. So, another school. Like I said, this is for you that are watching for this for the first time. We balance it. It's a little bit of talk about the tip of the mountain. It's a little bit of talk about everyone else because there are two divisions, and we're not an elitist blue bloods only type of thing. Even if my alma mater does keep winning championships and he keeps coaching them and his kids keep winning them, we like everybody here. Another team that I want to give a shout out to, only in their second year of having a program, the University City Centurions, sitting at 3-4 right now. I mean, Coach, we always talk about one or two schools that are still just getting up off the ground, and to already have a crooked number in that win column your second year in, it's a fun thing to just be talking about because you see it and you go, the game's growing. Hashtag grow the game.
Yeah, and it's good to see that. It's nice that there's teams out there they can play and get victories in. And I've told you before, my first season back east when I had a startup team, we didn't have those type of games we could win, and we went 0-16. And to these guys to have that opportunity is awesome, and that means they're doing some things right because that as a second year program they're beating probably some teams that are more been here for a couple of years. So
overtime win versus La Jolla Country Day, win versus Mira Mesa, win versus Hoover. So another couple programs that have been around for a couple of years. So congratulations to Coach B. Ray out there at UC. And like you bring up a really interesting point because we have talked about one side of it being that there is definitely a marked difference between the top and the bottom here, but it's actually maybe got a little bit of a good side to it that you do have some growth space, that you're not just getting boat raced by anybody. That's maybe its only, maybe that's its own other separate podcast of digging into a coach's clinic. Last one I want to get to, Mission Hills, sitting at 5-5 right now. Right, because we're talking about just how jam-packed that top 10 is. 5-5 Mission Hills, they were in it last week. They're out of it this week. But, I mean, they lost to Scripps Ranch. They lost to Poway. They lost to La Jolla, Del Norte, and Westview. Yeah, so they lost to the schools that they're maybe, quote-unquote, supposed to lose to. But
in most of those games.
They've scored on all of them. They've been in most of them. So let's put them maybe on the more likely a D1 playoff team. But is this something where at 5-5, your confidence index is a little bit higher than maybe your wins and losses say?
It is, because if you look at even the Del Norte game, they lose 14-10, and that's 10 goals.
That's insane.
On a good
that is
team,
insane.
On a good team that is beating some pretty high level teams, and so I mean that's good. That's a great sign for Mission Hills. And, I think that's that. Then if they're focused on D1, they're going to be in the mix.
That's about all that our little brains can handle for 1 week's worth of lacrosse, and we'll be back next week. And we're at about the we can call this the halfway point. Yeah, we're right about that halfway point. So we're closing in on league play. We're closing in on some really fun things. But let's be real, this has already been a really, really cool season. We're turning things around a little bit. Things are a little changing up. Next week, as I said, we're going to change up the fashion game. So be ready. Be ready. Coach is dreading it. I'm loving it because I feel like a kid in a candy shop getting to drag this guy. I get to drag him on camera every week anyway. And now just to make him even more uncomfortable. As always, tweet us, Instagram us. Let us know who we need to come check out. Help us just see goals. We employ 3 camera people in terms of getting out there every week. You're at games, but a lot of it is we can speak so much more intelligently even if it's grainy cell phone video. Just send us, say, hey, look. Yeah. Here's Bonita Vista scoring. Here's Carlsbad scoring. Here's Valley Center scoring. Whoever it is, let us know. Tweet at us. We'll chop it up on the next episode. We'll gladly talk about literally anything involved in San Diego sectional lacrosse. He's Coach DeMeo. I'm Christian Pedersen. He's going to go play Jay Sarah right now. We'll have some highlights of that. And we out. That's a mic drop type moment.